Hello, and thank you for joining us today in our studies of Second Kings. Today we're in Second Kings chapter 9. And while there are a lot of different things that transpire in this chapter, it's a somewhat lengthy chapter, and there is a lot of action that transpires in this particular chapter. We can really break down our lessons today into two different categories. And so instead of the normal 3 lessons from each chapter, I'm going to just take 2 this morning. As you come into chapter 9, it begins with a message from Elisha to Jehu. Now, Jehu is one of the former commanders for Ahab, and he still is a commander in the army of Israel. And the message is going to be that he is going to be the next king of the northern kingdom of Israel. He is going to be anointed as king. And he is going to be given the task of fulfilling the promises that God has made to the family of Ahab. And that is what the entirety of chapter 9 is going to be about. God's promises being kept. Because of the fact, and these promises go all the way back to the book of 1 Kings, where you have the promises that surrounded the death of Naboth. When Ahab and Jezebel are going to have Naboth killed so that Ahab can have Naboth's vineyard, it is stated that the promise of Jezebel's impending death is going to be given there, and that's what's going to transpire here in 2 Kings chapter 9. But there's another promise that is going to be given in the book of 1 Kings concerning Ahab, that his lineage is not going to continue on, that he is going to lose his descendants, that his family is going to be cut off. That promise is also going to be kept here in the book of 2 Kings chapter 9. And so you have these promises that God makes, these judgments that God makes on the family of Ahab that have been in place now for many years. We're talking about decades since these promises have been given. Jezebel is now an old woman at this particular time. And you have yet still a situation where God has not forgotten the things that he has said. And that the promises that God makes, while they may not come on the timetable that we are expecting, will still happen. And they will still be fulfilled, just as he has stated. The other thing I want us to notice from chapter 9 is the emphasis on the second promise that we've discussed. So much of the focus oftentimes goes to the promise concerning Jezebel because it is the more gruesome. It is definitely the more vividly illustrated promise that is going to be made or that is going to be conducted and filled out in chapter 9, with Jezebel being thrown down, her body not being able to be buried, and so on and so forth. But you also have an interesting sentiment that you read in chapter 9 when it comes to the end of Omri's dynasty. And usually when we talk about these things, we go back to Ahab, but the actual beginning of the family ruling in Israel goes back to Ahab's father, Omri. Omri is going to be the one who was a general at the time, and he is going to take the army when he finds out that his king is dead, and he is going to go and basically take the kingdom for himself. It is going to then be passed down to Ahab, and then to Ahab's son Joram. And it is going to be Joram that Jehu is going to kill outside the city of Jezreel. And it's also going to be Ahab's grandson, Ahaziah. Ahaziah is the king of Judah, and he is Ahab's grandson by means of Ahab's daughter Athaliah, who married into the royal family of Judah. So you have 2 descendants of Ahab that are on the throne in the 2 kingdoms of Israel. You have Joram in the north and Ahaziah in the south. They are both going to die on the same day. Joram has been king for several years, but Ahaziah has only been king in Judah for about a year. You have a situation now where the family of Ahab has somewhat of a lock on the leadership of Israel. And yet, within the confines of a single day, that lock on its leadership is going to dissolve. And the statement is going to be made that Ahab is going to be without a son. And that is what is going to come about with Jehu taking vengeance on Joram and Ahaziah here in 2 Kings chapter 9. And so you have the end of Omri's dynasty. You're going to have the continuation of David's lineage in the south, because you're going to have, as we're going to see beginning in chapter 10, you're going to have the continuation of the line of Jehoshaphat that is going to continue to reign. But Ahab's line and the power that it has gleaned in Israel for decades is going to be concluded. When you see 2 Kings chapter 9, what you see more than anything else is the fact that God is going to keep his promises. And when God says that something is going to take place, while it may not come at the exact moment that we think it should or that we wanted it to, it is going to take place. So these are some of the things that I found in 2 Kings chapter 9. I hope they're beneficial to you. I know we could spend a lot more time talking about the minute details of the chapter, but I hope that this has been a good overview to help you see what the purpose of the chapter is. Next time we'll come back and we'll begin examining 2 Kings chapter 10. But until then, have a great day.